Create a complete e-commerce website from scratch using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All of the source code for today's video will be available down below. Open up Visual Studio Code, and what we want to do first is create an index.html file. Now create a folder called styles. Within this folder, we're going to create a file called styles.css. Then we want to create another folder called scripts. Inside of this folder, we want to create a file called scripts.js. Then we also want to include a folder called images, and I'm going to go ahead and paste my images in this folder. Now I have my images successfully added here. I'm going to go back to my index.html, type in an exclamation mark here, hit enter to generate my boilerplate, change out my title here, link to our style sheet, make the rel equal to style sheet, and then I need to link to /styles/styles.css, create a script element, and here is where I'm going to link to my JavaScript file. So I'll say ./scripts/scripts.js, and then at the end here we want to add our defer attribute. Before we link to our style sheet, I'm going to paste the Font Awesome 6.5 CDN. If you guys need this, there will be a link to it down below. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste in my header HTML and CSS. If you guys want to learn how to create this, I'll leave a link to that video up top and down below. Now that I have my navigation bar successfully added, I'm going to go ahead and open the live server with 5 server right here. Copy my HTML here and just paste it one more time. And I'm going to change the name of this to cart.html. Change the title to cart. And from here, I'm going to go to my styles.css, and everything down here below is just the styling for our navigation here, which again will be available in the source code. Target the body and change the margin to 0, the font family to Arial. And since we're going to be using rems today, we want to target our HTML element and change our font size to 100%. Scroll to the bottom of our CSS file, and here we want to start creating media queries to make this responsive. So we'll specify a max width of 1200 pixels. And inside of this media query, what we need to do is once again target the HTML element and change our font size to 75%. Now we can copy this media query, go below, and we can simply change our max width to 767 pixels for mobile devices. Change our font size to 55% to make all of the units that we use rems with completely responsive. Back in our index.html, we're going to create an h1 element with the class shop-header text shop. And you guys will not see that pop up on the screen yet because our header is set to fixed, so it's actually appearing behind our header right now. Create a main element with a class product-grid. Create a div with a class of product. Add a data-id attribute and make this equal to 1. Create another div with the class image-container image element. In this image, we're going to navigate into our images folder and select watch 1 and then put some basic alt text to add a lazy loading attribute at the end. Create an h3 element, paste our text followed by a paragraph element. Underneath that, another paragraph element, button with a class of add to cart, text add to cart. Include our description, include our price, and we'll also add a $sign to that. Navigate to our styles.css. We're going to go all the way up here to the top, target our product-grid, change our display to grid template columns. Repeat, we want 3 columns and we want each column to take up the same amount of space. Gap of 1 rem, max width 80 rem, margin of 5 rem, and auto. Then we want a padding of 0 and 5 rem. Shop header class, align our text to the center, add a margin top of 10 rem, change our font size to 2.5 rem. Product class, change our display to flex direction to be column, align our items to the center, justify our content to the center, gap of 0.5 rem. Image container class, overflow of hidden, box shadow of 0, 0, 2 pixels and 0 one more time, RGBA value black, and we want it to be at 75% opacity. Create a border radius of 0.2 rem. Product image, add a transition of 0.3 seconds, change our cursor to grab, and we want to change our width to 100%. Target our product image again, so I'll copy and paste it, but I want to target it on hover. Change our transform, and we want to scale this by 1.1. And now if we hover on this, you guys can see it zooms in, but it doesn't go outside of our image container. Target our product H3 and product paragraph here. Max width of 15 rem. Align our text to the center. Margin 1 rem followed by 3 zeros. Add to cart class. Add a padding of 1 rem followed by a margin of 1 rem. Change our border to none, and we once again want a border radius of 0.2 rem. Change our cursor to a pointer, add a transition of 0.4 seconds, change our font size to 1 rem, and we want to have a bold font weight. Target our add to cart, but on hover. Use our transform again, followed by our scale, and use 1.1. Now to make this responsive for mobile devices, we're going to scroll back down to our media query with a max width of 767 pixels. Target our product grid, change the grid template columns to once again repeat, but we only want 1 column for mobile devices, so we'll say 1 column at 1 FR each. You guys can see now if I shrink that down, it will switch to a 1 column layout to include a gap of 4 rem, and then we want to target our image container and change the width of this to 50%, so it's not so big. So now if we shrink down, you guys can see it and it looks a little prettier. Now you guys are only going to see 1 product for now, and I'm doing that on purpose because we're going to use JavaScript later on in today's video to dynamically render the rest of our products onto this page. Now in Visual Studio Code, we can navigate back to our cart.html, and underneath our header, we're going to create another main element with the class of cart section. Here we'll create an h1 element, and we're just going to hard code in a style with a color of black. This we just wanted to say cart. Next we want to create an anchor element, and here we want to navigate back to our index.html page, and we're going to say here continue shopping. Create a div element with a class of row, another div with a class of cart items, followed by another div with a class of pricing container. Create a div with a class of product in cart. Create an image element, make the src equal to the same image from earlier, so we'll just say watch 1, and then we'll type watch as our alt. Create another div with a class of product info, and create 2 paragraph elements within that div. In the first paragraph element, we're going to say title, and then in the second one, we're going to say item number colon, and then we'll just put 1. Underneath our product in cart, we need to create a product in cart left div, and I'm going to Control X this and simply put it down here where it needs to go, and now you guys can see I have the correct layout. Underneath our product in cart left, what I need to do is create another div with the class product in cart right. Create another div here. Inside of this div, we want a paragraph element that says each, followed by a div with a class of price. Create an attribute called data unit price, And for now, this will be 1. Another div with the class of quantity. Create a label element for our quantity. Specify quantity as our text here. Create a select element. The name needs to be quantity. We need a class of quantity dash select followed by an ID of quantity. Next, we need to create some options for this select input, and the value for this is going to be 1, and then the option to select here is going to be 1. And what we need to do is copy this and go ahead and paste it 3 more times. And we need to change each one of these values to a new value. So I'll go 2 and then 3, and then the last one is going to be 4. Underneath our quantity div here, I'm going to paste our FAX icon from Font Awesome. Inside of our pricing container div, we're going to create an H3 element that says order summary. Create a div with a class of subtotal. Here we're going to have an H3 that says subtotal colon, and then we want a div that says price right here. Div, and we're simply going to put a 0 right here. Another div with the class of shipping, an H3 that says estimated shipping, and a div that says free. Div with a class of tax, H3 that says estimated tax, and a div simply with a placeholder of 0. Another div with the class of total, an H3 that says estimated total, a div with a 0. Then we want one more div, and inside of this div we want to create a button with a class checkout dash button that says checkout. And now you guys can see the structure here. Navigate back to your styles, and we're going to scroll up, and just before the navigation styling starts, we want to add our cart styling. And we're going to start with our cart dash section class. Change our display to flex. Our flex direction needs to be column with a gap of 1 rem, and our padding is going to be 8 rem by 3 rem, 3 rem, 3 rem, followed by a max width of 80 rem. Margin of auto. Target our continue dash shopping class. Change our color to black. Target our continue dash shopping class and change our color to black. And you guys are going to see that's not taking effect because we didn't actually add our class to that anchor element. So I'll go back to our cart.html and simply add a class and make it equal to continue shopping. You guys can see that. Now we can target our row, change our display to grid, use our grid template columns, 2fr by 1fr, a gap of 4 rem, and a margin of 2 rem by 0. Now we can target our cart items class, change our display to flex, our flex direction to column, and we want a gap of 2 rem. Target our cart items paragraph element and the label in our quantity class. Change our margin to 0, 0, 1 rem by 0. Target our cart dash items image and change our width to 10%. Target our product in cart class, change our display to grid, change our grid template columns to 2fr by 1fr, and justify our content as space evenly, followed by a gap of 1 rem, padding bottom of 2 rem, and we want to include a border bottom 1 pixel solid and this color code. Now we want to target our product in cart again, but we want to target nth child of 1, so that's going to be the first element with this class. For this one, we want to get rid of these, change padding bottom to padding top, change border bottom to border top. Now we want to target the product in cart left and our product in cart right, change our display to flex and our gap to 2 rem. Next, target our quantity class, change our display to flex, our flex direction to column, target our quantity select class, font size of 1 rem and a padding of 0.5 rem. Target our quantity select option and change our font size to 2 rem. Target our icon by using its fa-x class and change our cursor to a pointer. Now you guys can see that we're not getting the proper spacing, and the reason is because here at our cart section class is I need to get rid of this last attribute here. You guys will see the correct spacing now. Now we need to style our pricing. Targeting our pricing dash container, change our display to flex and our flex direction to column. Change our background color to this color and add a padding of 1 rem, a gap of 1 rem, and a border radius of 0.2 rem. Target our subtotal class, our total, tax, and shipping. Change our display to flex, and we want to justify content space between. Next, we want to target just our subtotal, tax, and shipping, so we'll get rid of our total here. Change our font size to 0.8 rem. Target our total, change our font size to 1 rem, our font weight to bold, and we want to have a border top 1 pixel solid followed by this color. And then for each one of these, we also need to align the items to the center. Target our pricing container H3 element and just change our margin to 0. Then to our total, we're going to go ahead and specify a font family of Arial and a padding top of 1 rem. Target our checkout dash button, change our width to 100%, add a padding of 1 rem by 2 rem, font size of 1.2 rem, and a color of white. Background color, we want this to be black. Change our border to none, our border radius to 4 rem. Now we need to go back down to our media query, the last one of 767. Target our row class, change our grid template columns to 1FR. Target our pricing container, change our width to 80% with a margin of auto. And now you guys can see that in our cart page, we have the items set up and we have the order summary set up, and back in our index.html, we have the shop page set up. Navigate to your scripts.js file. Everything that I have in here is simply for the navigation, so we're just gonna move that down and out of the way. Create a constant variable called cart storage. Make this equal to an empty object. We want to set up a get key. Here we want to create a function and make this equal to JSON dot parse parentheses local storage, because that's where we're going to be storing the information for our site, followed by get item, and we want to get our cart products, and we want to initialize an empty array if we cannot get our cart products local storage. Now we need to create a set key, create a function. We want to pass a parameter called cart products, and then we want to use our local storage dot set item, pass in our cart products array that we either got up here or needed to initialize as an empty array, and then we want to JSON dot stringify our cart products. Next, we want to set up a constant called isIndex page, and we're going to use this to conditionally render stuff onto each page. Window dot location dot path name dot includes, and then we want to pass in our index.html file. And here we can simply copy this and paste it down below and change this to is cart page and change our index to cart.html. Next, we're going to create a variable called items, and this is going to be equal to an array, and we're going to store each one of our products and its information inside of an object. So the ID for the first one will be 1, followed by a description of this, a title. We want to get our image and our price here. Now I can just copy this And we're only going to have 3 products, but you can have as many as you want. And I'm going to go ahead and change out these next 2. Now you guys can see I also included alt text, so I'm going to include some alt text for the first item. So now we have 3 items, and you guys can create more or less based on your needs. And now we can use this information to dynamically render our products onto the page instead of hard coding it in. So right below this, we're going to use an if statement to see if we are on our index page by using isIndexPage. Create a variable called product container. Make this equal to document.querySelector, and we want to select our product grid class. And then what we want to do is specify our items array, and then for each one of these items that we have listed here, what we want to do is specify each item, which is going to be each object in this array above. Use our arrow syntax to create a function, create a variable called new prod, and what we can do is go back to our index.html, and instead of having all of this be hard coded into our HTML, what we can do is select it, Control X to get rid of it, come back to our script, and then we're going to use template literals, which are backticks. These are not quotation marks. These are normally located in the top left of your computer. And what we want to do here is simply paste in our HTML. And then inside of our product container, what we want to do is use .insert adjacent HTML. And we want to insert this before end. And we want it to be our new product variable. So now you guys can see that we have this showing up 3 times because it's creating a product for each one of the objects that we have within our array here, which is 3. So what we want to do now is not hard code in our ID. So to get rid of this, you want to use $ followed by your curly brackets. We need to access our item.id, and we want to do this for each one of the values that needs to change. So for our image here, what we can do is use that same syntax again, use our item and .image here, and we can also use our alternative text. So again, follow the same syntax, and we want to go item.alt. Our h3 is going to be item.title, and what I'm going to do is just simply copy this and paste it for our description here, paste it for our price. So what we can do here is we can do item.description and item.price. And what we can do here to get our $ is simply put another $ in the front to give it the correct format. And now you guys can see, with the help of our template literal and our format here, we can dynamically render our products onto our HTML page without having to hard code it in with this simple line of code here. So what we can do now is go down below, create another constant called add to cart buttons here, make this equal to document.querySelector all, and what we want to do is select each one of our add to cart buttons here. And querySelector all is going to return a node list. So because it's a node list, we can use our array methods. So we'll use .for each on this variable, pass a button as our parameter, and then for each one of these buttons, what we want to do is add an event listener, and this is going to be an on-click event listener here. And in this event listener, we want to pass our event object, and now we can create another constant called product ID, make that equal to our event.target.closest. And before I continue, if you guys are confused about exactly what this is getting, what you can do throughout the code today is use our console.log and simply log out the variables like so, and you guys can see them. And we're looking for our product class, and we want to get an attribute. So we'll say get attribute, and we want to get our data-id attribute, which is going to be this one, which is going to be a unique number for each one of our products. Now, if we go over here and inspect this page, what you guys are going to notice is that if I go to the console, you guys don't see anything. But if I select add to cart, it's going to log 1 because this is our product with the ID of 1. 2 for 2 and 3 for 3. So if you guys get confused, use console.log to see what's going on. Then we want to create a product data variable. We want to pass in our items and we want to find something. And here we want to pass item because here we're going to be looking for something in our items array. So we want to say if our item.id is equal to the number value, so we'll use parse int of our product ID, create a variable called cart items using our let keyword, make this equal to cart storage dot get. Look for our existing item index by creating a variable called existing item index. Make this equal to cart items dot find, pass in item again, use our item dot id, and then we want to see if this is the same thing as our product data dot ID. So that's why we created this variable so we could use it down here. And then now we want to see if our item is already in the cart. So we'll use our existing item index and we'll see if this is not equal to -1. And that means it's already in the cart. So we want to issue an alert and we want to say item is already in the cart. But if it's not already in the cart, we want to use our else statement and use our cart items dot push method. We want to push our new item as an object to our cart items by using the spread operator on our product data variable. And this is actually 3 dots here. And then we want to pass an initial quantity of 1. And here is where we can use that cart storage variable that we created early on here. And we want to set our cart items now. So this is going to officially put this new object into our local storage. Finally, we want to alert that the item is added to your cart. And this we need to wrap in quotation marks. And I accidentally messed up where it says existing item index. Instead of just find, we're specifically looking for the index here. So we need to say find indexed. Now, if we go to our inspector tools and go to console, what we want to do is type in our local storage followed by .clear, and we can select this one here. Go ahead and enter that. That's going to clear our local storage. And then what we want to do now is test out to see if this works. So if we press add to cart, it's going to say item added to your cart. But if we press it again, you're going to see that it says item is already in the cart. And you guys can see the first time it logged -1. So we're running our else part of our if statement. But the second time it's 0. So we run this portion. And now if we simply type in local storage and hit enter, what you're going to notice is that our product, our first one here with the ID of 1, is located here with all the necessary information. So now that we have the functionality for our shop page set up, what we can do is go down here and use another if statement. And what we want to do here is check to see if this is our cart page. We're looking specifically for our cart.html. Here we want to create a variable called cart grid. And we want to make this equal to document.query selector. And we want to select our cart items class. Create another variable called cart items. Make that equal to cart storage dot get. Create another if statement. And then if we have nothing in our cart items, so we want to say cart items dot length is equal to 0 or nothing inside of it. And if this is empty, what we want to do is change the cart grid dot inner HTML value to an HTML string here of your cart is empty. But if our local storage is not entered, empty, we want to run this else statement and we want to use our cart items. So this is going to be everything in our local storage, and we can use our array method of for each here. Pass an item as our parameter for each item that is in our local storage. create a variable called add prod for add product. And here we want to pass our template literals again. And what we can do is go back to our cart page, and where it says product in cart, what we want to do is not hard code this in. So we'll go ahead and Control X this, go back to our script file and simply paste it within our template literals here. Use our cart grid and use insert adjacent HTML, and we want to use before end again, and we simply want to add the variable that we just created of add prod to add our products. This actually needs to be inside of our for each method, so I'll just get rid of that and paste it above. And now you guys can see it's still hard coding in our first item here. And in our initial div here, what we want to do is add a data-id attribute. And here, instead of hard coding it in, we want to use our $ curly brackets again, and we want to pass our item.id here. And then just like we did for the products on our index page to dynamically render this, we want to do that same thing here for each one of our differing values. Inside of our template literals, I'm dynamically rendering our ID, image, alt, title, ID, and price here from our locally stored array. So what we need to do now is add a little bit more functionality to this. So for each one of these select options here, we need to add some specific code. And what we want to do is use our same syntax again, but we want to specify our item.quantity, and we want to see if this is equal to 1. So if we select 1, what we want to do is add our selected attribute to pass back into our local storage and update everything. Or if it's not selected, we just want to leave it as an empty string. And we want to simply copy this and paste it for each one of these option values here. So we'll just paste it, and then we need to change each one of our numbers to the corresponding option value here. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you guys can add more or less depending on your needs. Go back to our console, and what we're going to do is again clear our local storage, refresh our page, and you're going to see that our cart is empty. So what's happening here is it's running this first if statement. But if we go back to our cart, add our first product here, go back to our cart page, you guys are going to see that it pops up here dynamically based on whatever we select. So if we add the rest of these, we can then go back to our cart and 3 of them will show up successfully. And now what you guys are going to notice, if we get rid of that, if we go back to our index page and then back into our cart page, is it saves whatever we selected because we're storing this in local storage. But now you guys are going to see that our estimated values down here are not dynamically rendering based on our selections. So we need to scroll back up, and just after our items array, we need to create a function called calculate total. Create a variable with our let keyword called total price. Make this equal to just 0 for now. Create a constant variable called cart grid items. Make that equal to document.query selector all, and we want to get all our product in cart class elements. Then we want to again use our for each method, but on our cart grid items, we want to pass in an item parameter, create a variable called price element, use item.query selector, and get our price class. Create another constant, called this one quantity element, get our quantity select class, and we want to copy and paste, create another one called unit price, use our parse float method, use our price element dot get attribute, and we want to get the data unit price. Create another variable called quantity, make that equal to parse int, and then we want to pass in our quantity element and get the value from that. Now we want to get our item total. And to do this, we simply want to multiply the unit price by the quantity. And then we want to update our total price by adding our item total for each one of our items. Now we're going to create a pricing container variable. And what we want to do is use document.query selector all, and we want to get our pricing container class. We want to use an if statement to see if our pricing container is present. Create a variable called display pricing. Make this equal to empty template literals. Now we want to go back to our cart.html and get everything inside of our pricing container div. So we'll simply just select all of this, use Control X, go back to our scripts, and then we'll just go ahead and paste it right into our JavaScript file. And below our template literals, we want to use our pricing container, specify our inner HTML, and make that equal to our display pricing. And now what we need to do is dynamically render our content. So what we want to do is for our subtotal, we want to use our syntax with our $ and curly braces, and we simply want to put our total price. We'll copy this, and for our tax, what we want to do is paste it here, and our tax is going to be our total price times 0.08. And then we also want our estimated total with the price of our items and our tax. So what we'll do is just simply multiply this by 1.08. Then we can go back up here, copy the name of our function, and then for our if is cart statement here, what we want to do is in this inner if statement, we want to run our calculate total if our cart is empty, but we also want to run it if our cart has content in it. So what we'll do is run our function either which way. And now you guys are going to notice that even though we added it, it's not working, and that's because I accidentally for pricing containers said query selector all, but we don't need to do that. We just need to use our query selector here, and now you guys are going to notice that it's clearly depicting our prices here for our subtotal, tax, and estimated total. But you guys are going to notice a huge issue here because obviously these numbers are showing way too many decimal places. So what we can do to fix these crazy numbers is create a new function to correctly format this. So before our calculate total function, what we want to do is create another function called format price. And we want to pass in a parameter of price, create a variable called formatted price, use our parse float method, and whatever number we pass into here, we want to use that number, and we want to use our toFixed method to only display 2 decimal places. Use toLocalString because we want it to format with proper commas. And then we simply want to return our formatted price. We can go back down to our pricing display here, and we can use our format price function on each one of our values here. So I added it on the first one here, and you guys can see it only has 2 decimal places now. Now you guys can see that I added it to the rest of the values here, and now they are formatted properly right here. And what we can do to add a $ is simply come back here and add another $ in the front of each one of our values, so it looks like a legitimate dollar formatted value. So we have our decimal places and everything showing. And now if I add the rest of our products here like so and go back into our cart page, you guys will notice that it's also formatted with a comma here, and that's because of the toLocalString method that we used. Go underneath our calculate total function here, and what we want to do is create another function called update quantity. And what we're going to do with this function is update the values and everything within our cart page to correctly display based on what quantity we select. In this function, we need to pass our event as a parameter, create a variable called quanVal, make that equal to parse int, use event.target.value, create another constant called prod, make that equal to event.target.closest, and we want to get the closest product in cart element. Create another one with prod ID, use our parse int method, pass our prod.get attribute, and we want to get our data-id attribute. Then we want to create a variable called new cart items, but with our let, reference our cart storage dot get here. And we want to use our new variable new cart items, say new cart items dot map to create a new array, pass in item as our parameter again. And we want to create an if statement that says if item dot id is equal to prod ID, we want to change the item dot quantity to the newly selected quanVal variable. And then we want to return our item. Use cart storage again, and this time we want to set it to our new cart items. Update our pricing again, so we'll call our calculate total function. Now what we need to do is say document.add event listener, and this is outside of our update quantity function here. We want this to be a change event listener, pass our event, and then say if our event.target.classlist.contains, and we want to see if this contains the class quantity select, and we don't need to put a period here because we're looking for a class list already. And if it does, what we want to do is say update quantity, so we'll call our function and pass our event. Now if we change the quantity of our products here in our cart page, you will see immediately that our value updates to reflect the items that we chose based on the quantity. But now we also want to be able to get rid of this when we click this X button here. So we need to create another function over here. And so we'll go above this event listener that we just created, use our const keyword and call our new function remove item, and we'll use our arrow syntax again, pass our event, create a variable called prod remove, say event.target.closest, and we are looking for our product in cart class, and we're looking for the closest one of them. And we want to get our attribute of data-id. Create a variable called cart items, make that equal to cart storage dot get, which again is our local storage. Now we want to use our cart items, make that equal to cart items, and what we want to do is filter through this locally stored array, pass in item, and we want to get our item.id and see if this does not equal the integer value of our prod remove variable. Now we need to say cart storage dot set, and we need to set it as our cart items. Then we need to say event.target.closest, and we want to again look for our product in cart, our closest version of it, and simply remove it. And say if our cart items dot length is equal to 0, we want to say document dot query selector, get our cart items class dot inner HTML, pass in an h2 element that says your cart is empty. And then after all of these calculations and getting rid of everything, what we need to do is call our calculate total function to recalculate the total based on the removed elements. Now that we have this remove item function set up, what we need to do to make sure this actually works is go all the way to the bottom of our if statement that's checking for our cart page. So we'll go to the bottom here, create a variable called fax, make that equal to document dot query selector all, and we want to get each one of our FA-X icons. And then for each one of these, what we need to do is use our for each method, pass each one of the items from that node list. And then for each item, we want to add an event listener, pass our event, call our remove item function, and remove the event. And then as you guys can see, it's not working because I forgot to specify the type of event that we want. So we need to go back here to our event listener, specify our click event, and now this will work successfully. And you guys can see that each time we run this function, it gets rid of that item here where you can see it, but also from the local storage, and it updates the price down here. And if we get rid of all three of those, it will say your cart is empty. If we inspect this again, go to our console, type in our local storage, hit enter, you guys will see that it is once again updated to an empty array. So now we have a fully functional e-commerce website that we can use to sell our products without having to pay a service or anything, built completely from scratch. If you guys need help, reach out to me directly through the comments or go to the website at kelmanwebdesign.com and I will help you guys out. Thanks for watching.